So let's look at medieval Japan, which is the period we're focusing on here as we move into the Japanese section of medieval non-Western history of interior design. And we're coming in during the Asuka Period. And in Japanese history and art, this is about 552 to 645. The importance of this is where Buddhism will be imported from Korea. What happens is Japan is trading with Korea. Now, we think of Japan as very isolated, but throughout their history, they're regularly trading with China and Korea. In fact, they will colonize Korea later on in history. So what happens is the Korean rulers will send some Buddhist texts and Buddhist monks to Japan. They are very influential on the Japanese. They're very open to these Buddhist ideas. And the Buddhism that we're seeing coming into Japan has changed. Now, Buddhism in India is sort of this pure form, this idea of more or less a philosophy more than anything else. When it gets into China, that's where we get into the idea of constant meditation in Northern Chan Buddhism, or we get into the idea of instantaneous enlightenment through monotonous tasks. That is Southern Chan Buddhism. Well, Southern Chan is what will come into Korea, and then it will mix there again with Northern Chan, come into Japan, and eventually the Buddhism we find in Japan will move towards what we call Zen Buddhism, which is a slightly different form. It deals with practiced meditation and contemplation. So we see an evolution of Buddhism, just like you see an evolution of Islam throughout the world or an evolution of Christianity as it spreads and evolves. But that's the importance of this period. That's where we're starting, with the introduction of Buddhism. Last time we dealt with Shintoism and some of their beliefs, as well as looking at the shrine of Amaterasu. Now, as Buddhism develops in Japan, it's going to take on its own character. Japan is fairly isolated. Yes, there's trade, but those are very specific merchants that are making that trade. We don't see huge numbers of people being inspired by the Chinese practices, for example. So when Buddhism comes to Japan, it takes on its own form. We will also see the Heiam Period, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time. This is the period named after the capital city, which is today Kyoto, and is the period when Buddhism, Taoism, and other Chinese influences are at their height. They're looking at what will be called the Song Dynasty in China for a lot of their arts and ideas. And this will be heavily influential on the Japanese moving forward. We will see the rise of the emperor. Now, the emperor in Japan, we think of him as this sort of total monarch, but in reality, throughout most of Japanese history, the emperor is going to be more or less a figurehead. In fact, in this period, frequently the emperor as a teenager will be sent to a Buddhist monastery and basically stay there. So they have this government bureaucracy that really runs things, and the emperor is a figurehead very much similar to Queen Elizabeth in England today.